Most mornings in April, Savannah feels like it's still waking up. The trees outside my apartment rustle gently in the breeze, like they're stretching after a good night's sleep. I had coffee on the porch like always, light roast, one sugar, no cream. It's the same ritual I've had for 5 years now, since moving into this small brick unit in the historic district. My life isn't flashy. I don't wake up to texts from lovers or a calendar full of brunches, but it's calm, predictable. I've worked hard for that. April also means Mom's birthday is around the corner. She loves spring. She used to say, "It's the one time of year I feel like I belong somewhere." I never quite knew what she meant by that. Still, I remember her once promising, "One day, we'll throw you the biggest birthday ever, I swear." I was 9. We were sitting in the back of her car while it rained. She looked like she meant it. We live in the same city, but emotionally, my family's miles away. I still call every week, even when I know the conversations will be short. I send cards, flowers on holidays. I keep showing up, even when it's clear I'm not expected to. Today, something nudged me. Maybe it was the air. Maybe it was nothing. I texted her, "Hey Mom, any plans for your birthday dinner this weekend?" Her reply came an hour later. Just a single message. "You weren't invited. Griffin doesn't like you. It would be awkward." That was it. No love you, no sorry. Just flat, cold words that cut sharper than she probably intended. Griffin is my sister Rowena's boyfriend. They've been together for a few years. He's never liked me much, but I never thought that would earn me an exile from my own mother's birthday. I stared at the message, waiting for it to change. Maybe I misread it. Maybe it was a joke, some bizarre autocorrect mishap. But no, I read it again. Again. "You weren't invited." Just like that. I didn't call. What could I even say? My brain scrambled to find a reasonable explanation, but there wasn't one. Just the facts. They were gathering. I wasn't, because Griffin doesn't like me. And just like that, I felt like I didn't belong in my own family. It's not the first time I felt left out. There were the skipped holidays, the group photos I was never tagged in, the baby showers I heard about after the fact. Always a reason. Always, "Oh, it was last minute," or "We thought you were busy." The message just made it official. Sometimes the loudest heartbreak is a silent message. I grabbed my phone, opened Instagram. I told myself I was just curious, just checking. But deep down, I already knew. There it was. Rowena's post. Floral centerpieces lined up on a table. Captioned, "Mom's gonna love these." Swipe. A photo of a cake, half frosted, reading, "Happy birthday, Velma." The comments piled in. "So excited for Saturday." "Tell your mom I said hi." "Wish I could come." My name? Nowhere. No group chat, no accidental tag, no missed email, just nothing. I scrolled through Rowena's stories. There she was, smiling, arms around Griffin, laughter in the background. It felt like a movie I was never cast in, one they'd filmed without me, then pretended I'd never been in the script. I didn't cry. That's the strange part. I stood up, walked to the fridge, pulled out some leftover pasta, sat back down, ate, in silence. The rhythm of my fork against the plate felt like a ticking clock. Each bite tasted more like cardboard. I kept eating anyway, just to fill the silence. I remembered defending Griffin once during a family dinner when he snapped at a waiter. "He's just stressed," I'd said. "He's had a rough week." I gave them the benefit of the doubt, every time. Turns out, they gave me absence in return. I wasn't just excluded. I was erased, quietly, efficiently, like a name on a guest list crossed out in pencil. I finished eating, put the plate in the sink. I didn't wash it. I sat back down and stared at my phone. The message was still there. No follow-up, no reconsideration, just those words hanging in the air like smoke that won't clear. "You weren't invited." And suddenly, I couldn't help but wonder, if I disappeared tomorrow, would they even notice? 2 days passed. 2 days of trying not to let a text message rewrite everything I believed about family. I kept telling myself it had to be a misunderstanding. Maybe my mother had worded it poorly. Maybe Griffin's distaste for me wasn't as powerful as her loyalty to her daughters. I drafted a dozen replies and deleted every one. The closest I came to sending one said, "Am I really not welcome in my own family's home?" But I didn't send it. I went to the market instead. Walked the aisles with a basket I didn't need to fill, hoping the fluorescent lights and the smell of produce would ground me. Bananas, dish soap, a jar of pickles. Nothing made sense in my cart or in my head. I passed a family outside the store celebrating a birthday. Balloons tied to a stroller. Laughter that didn't sound forced, the kind of casual joy that used to come easy. I smiled, but only with half my face. The rest of me stayed back, watching, remembering. When you're constantly excluded, you start to think you've earned it. That maybe you did something, said something, years ago you can't recall. And even if you didn't, the silence makes it seem like you probably did. I told myself not to spiral. I needed clarity, not self-pity. So I called Aunt Avis. She's never picked sides before. She shows up to weddings, funerals, even baby showers with equal energy and no drama. If anyone could give me an honest answer, it was her. She answered on the second ring, cheerful as ever. "Ellery, sweetheart, it's been too long." I smiled, despite myself. "Hey, Aunt Avis, just wanted to check in. How's your week been?" "Oh, you know," she said, chuckling, "busy with prep for Saturday. I still can't believe your mom's turning 60. Makes me feel ancient." My throat tightened. I hadn't said anything about the party. "Yeah," I replied slowly. "I heard about it." She paused. The tone in her voice shifted just enough. "Oh. I thought it was odd you weren't on the guest list, especially after Velma said everyone agreed it was for close family only." The silence on my end lasted too long. Everyone agreed. Not just Mom, not just Griffin. Everyone. It wasn't an accident. It was a decision. My name had been brought up and scratched out. Aunt Avis must have realized what she said. "I'm sure it wasn't meant to hurt you, honey. Maybe it just got complicated. You know how these things go." "I do," I said, steady. "Thanks for being honest." We hung up politely. I even thanked her again. Then I sat down at my kitchen table and stared at the wall. So it wasn't a misunderstanding, not a scheduling error, not Griffin being petty and my mom being weak. They talked about me. They decided. I made a list in my head of every time I'd let something slide. The Thanksgiving dinner where they changed the time last minute. The family trip to Asheville I only found out about from Facebook. Rowena's engagement party, no invite, just a blurry photo captioned "Surrounded by Love." When people leave you out repeatedly, it's not an oversight. It's a pattern, a choice. And I had let it happen. I gave them the benefit of the doubt, over and over. They took it like it was owed to them. Never once did they offer it back. That realization hit harder than I expected. It didn't knock me down. It made me stand up. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just turned my phone to silent. No more group notifications. No more checking to see if someone changed their mind. I stood in my living room and looked at the photo on the wall. Mom, Rowena, and me. It was from a Christmas years ago. The frame was tilted. Not enough to draw attention. Just enough to be wrong. I didn't straighten it. I didn't take it down. I left it there, crooked, like the whole relationship. I wasn't invited. But maybe I'd been holding on to a place I was never really welcome. Later that night, I sat in bed and scrolled through Airbnb listings. Not because I needed a vacation, not to escape. I just wanted to see what it would feel like to pick a place, any place, where I didn't have to wonder if I belonged. I woke up that morning with a strange sense of restlessness. I wasn't expecting closure or even comfort, but something told me to clean out the hall closet. Maybe it was just about keeping my hands busy. I opened the bin marked Old Tech and found my dusty laptop from years ago. It still had a cracked sticker on the lid that read, "Design is a dialogue," something I used to believe before family became the louder conversation in my life. The laptop powered on slower than I remembered. I told myself I was just looking for a recipe, maybe that lemon herb chicken Rowena once begged me to share, before she stopped talking to me without explanation. I clicked through folders I hadn't opened in years. That's when I saw the file. Planning Call 2021 M4A. It meant nothing at first. The name was vague, unassuming. But the date stopped me. April 2020. My mom's birthday had been that month. A virtual call, if I recalled right. Planning something. I hovered over the play button. Part of me didn't want to know. The other part, she pressed play. Velma's voice was the first thing I heard. Okay, so it's just us. Rowena, me, and Griffin will handle the invites. Then a pause. Laughter. I think it's best we don't include Ellery this time. She always makes things awkward. Rowena agreed with a soft laugh. She overthinks everything. Last year, she brought up Dad again. At a dinner. Oh, that. Velma chuckled. She can't let things go. I swear, it's like she's got a notepad of every mistake we've ever made. Someone, I couldn't tell if it was Griffin or maybe Rowena again, added, Ellery acts like the family therapist nobody hired. Laughter again. Easy, light, unbothered. I paused the file, then played it again. Then again. It wasn't a miscommunication. It wasn't about Griffin's opinion. This was how they spoke about me when I wasn't there. Like a problem, like a burden. There was no tension in their voices. No reluctance. They were comfortable talking like that. It hurt in a way I didn't expect. Not because they hated me. Hate, I could have processed. What I heard was worse. It was dismissal. Like I didn't matter enough to be considered. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there, staring at the wall, my hands resting on the edge of the table. I remembered something my old therapist once told me. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's disregard. That sentence floated up from the back of my mind like it had been waiting for the right moment to reappear. I had spent so many years trying to be less sensitive, more accommodating, easier to love. I tried to take up less space. I excused their forgetfulness, their jokes, their absence. But here was the truth, raw, unfiltered. They never tried. I was the only one holding a thread that no one on the other side was gripping. I saved the audio file to my drive, labeled it something I'd remember, Velma Planning Call Truth. Then I closed the laptop, walked to the kitchen, and made tea. The day outside looked normal. The sky hadn't shifted, but I had. I stood on the porch, warm mug in hand, and watched the wind move through the trees. Something inside me stilled, not in resignation, but in resolve. Back in the house, I opened the gallery on my phone and began deleting photos from birthdays I wasn't part of, screenshots of texts where I was the one reaching out, pictures of the three of us, smiling, posed. None of them felt real anymore. I left one photo. Just one. The crooked frame in my living room. It could stay. It wasn't a lie. It was tilted and cracked and uneven. It told the truth. I wasn't angry. Not in the way I used to be. It felt different now. Cleaner. Later that night, I opened my journal and wrote 4 words at the top of the page. Tomorrow, I say it out loud. I couldn't sleep that night. The memory of their voices, that recording, played on a loop in my head. Velma's tone too casual, Rowena's laughter too easy. It wasn't a stab in the back. It was the realization I hadn't even been seen as part of the body. When I opened my eyes the next morning, the room was still gray. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, turning above me, turning like my thoughts. I'd kept silent for years, biting my tongue, swallowing bruises that never showed, but that silence hadn't protected me. It had only made it easier for them to pretend I wasn't there. I made coffee, then opened my laptop again. This time, I didn't scroll through old files. I opened a blank status update. Typed, "Is there a reason I'm not included in family gatherings anymore? Honest question." Paused. My hands hovered above the keyboard. I wasn't trying to start a war. I wasn't naming names. I was asking a question that had lived in my chest for too long. I hit post. At first, nothing. Then, slow waves. A friend from high school. "You okay, Ellery?" A former coworker liked it. Then a cousin, one I hadn't heard from in a year, DM'd, "This about Rowena's party?" And then silence again. Until later that evening, when Rowena posted a story, white background, black text. Some people love airing drama when they're not the center of attention. No names, just enough for everyone to know. Then came a comment under my post. "Velma, I never said anything unkind," she wrote. No greeting, No check-in. Just that. I stared at it for a long while. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The guilt in her wording said more than she meant to reveal. The next morning, Avis texted me. Just one message. I'm sorry you saw this. Attached was a screenshot of a group chat. The title, Velma's 65th Planning. Names scrolled across the screen. My uncle, my cousin, my sister, Velma. One message near the top read, keep it small and familiar. Ellery tends to overreact, wouldn't handle it well. Another. She'd probably make it about herself again. I stopped reading. That sick feeling returned. The same one I had when I was 12 and overheard my mom tell a neighbor I was just so intense sometimes. Back then, I told myself I was sensitive. This time I knew better. I wasn't imagining things. I'd been slowly cut out of my own family, and no one had the courage to tell me directly. I texted Rowena. You knew, everyone else knew. She took an hour to respond. Don't turn this into something it's not. We just didn't want tension. You always make it hard. I stared at her message, the same script, just updated for adults. Velma didn't respond at all. I went about the rest of my day like a ghost. I completed my client calls. I watered my plants. I walked down the street to the market. Nobody knew anything was wrong, and I hated how practiced I was at pretending it wasn't. That night, I got a call from a client, one I'd worked with for years. She left a voicemail. Hi, Ellery, I saw your post. Hope everything's okay. Just wondering if now's the best time to move forward with the lake house project. Let's touch base in a few weeks. She was pulling out. She didn't say it directly. She didn't have to. There was a cost. I'd known there would be. That's why people stay quiet. Not because they're weak, but because speaking always comes with loss. My phone lit up every few minutes. Texts from people who hadn't said a word to me in months. Some offered comfort. Some told me to delete the post. Don't let this tear apart your family, one said. Just talk to your mom directly, another added. Like I hadn't tried that for years. I didn't reply to anyone. Instead, I opened my voice memos. Recorded. Hey mom, there's something I need you to hear. Then I paused. Finger hovered over the red button, then pulled back. Not tonight. I got a message from Melissa that morning. Simple. Careful. Rowena's having a casual brunch. Mom's birthday do-over. I wasn't sure if she'd want you there, but you're still family. My heart gave a twist. Hope. Maybe this was a chance to mend. Maybe. I hovered in front of the closet for what felt like hours. Chose a soft blouse, something I know my mom used to like. Brought flowers. Practiced what I'd say if someone asked why I was hurt. Prepared for tension, but believed in grace. I packed my car under a sky that threatened rain. The air was thick, warm. I drove slowly, breathing between the red lights, telling myself this was courage, not desperation. When I pulled into the driveway, something hit me. The hush before voices. The way windows looked dark when they should be bright. I walked up the steps with the flowers clutched. My presence was noticed, but not welcomed. The air folded around me, stiff. A few cousins nodded. Others looked away. Mom lowered her eyes. Rowena stepped out of the house with a forced smile. Ellery, this isn't the time. That was Rowena's voice. Low, contained. The kind of voice that carries disappointment and an apology. I stood, stunned. You're asking me to leave? Now? I said, but my voice cracked. Mom stepped forward. Velma's dress was pastel. She smelled like spring and disappointment. We just want peace today. Please, let it go for once. Her words hung in the air like something suffocating. I set the flowers down on the patio table. They weren't wanted, even though they meant everything. I walked away past the forced silence, past the awkward glances, past the pity and the guilt I could taste. The walk home was brutal. The pavement burned under my sandals, Savannah's sun pressing down, as if the world knew I was heavy with shame. Each step replayed their faces, their words, their silence. Something inside me snapped. There was a street musician, saxophone, low and mournful, playing near the square. I stopped. The notes wound around me. I listened until a familiar line seeped through my mind. There's a kind of loneliness that only comes from being erased by people who should know you best. My throat tightened. I didn't approach the musician. I kept walking. An older couple passed by, laughing with a grandchild. They held hands, grandmother's laughter loud, the kind of family I once believed I'd always have. My eyes stung, my feet hurt. I finally reached home, closed the door, put the key down. Nothing felt quiet. My chest pulsed. I collapsed onto the couch. Let the tears come. Not small tears, ones that shook my chest. I screamed internally. No sound. I opened a drawer full of old photos, birthday cakes, candles, family dinners, moments I thought belonged to me. I picked up a few. I didn't rip them. I didn't destroy them violently, but I stacked them, carefully. I let them go, some where they couldn't meet my eyes anymore. I dialed my therapist's voicemail. My thumbs lingered on the screen. I hesitated. Didn't leave a message. I wanted to leave Savannah, drive until my phone lost signal, but I stayed, because fleeing wouldn't erase the pain, it would only carry it with me. Then around midnight, my phone buzzed. A voicemail. Dad's name on the screen. I froze. My heart pounded. I hadn't spoken with him in how long? Years. He never called unless something had shifted. I stared at his name, trembling. Anxiety, despair, exhaustion, all tangled in one breath. But I picked it up. I listened. His voice was quiet, hesitant, regretful. Ellery. And something else I did not expect. I rolled over in bed and instinctively reached for my phone. No new texts, no missed calls, just the usual morning junk, ads, political spam, an alert from my calendar reminding me to water the basil plant I already forgot existed. But something felt off. I opened the family group chat, or tried to. The name had changed. It used to be Dade Family Gatherings. Simple, neutral. Now it read, The Real Family. My breath caught. That word, real, hit like a slap. Underneath it, a thread from earlier that morning. A cousin, Cheryl, had written, How long before this becomes more than just family stuff? No one replied, but no one pushed back either. There wasn't a message saying I'd been removed. I hadn't. But I hadn't been added to anything new, and I hadn't been addressed either. It was like I'd become part of the background, still technically there, but no longer seen. The silence screamed. I stared at that chat name again. The Real Family. My hands tightened around the phone. I told myself, maybe it's a joke. Maybe it's nothing. But my gut said otherwise. This wasn't exclusion. This was branding, and I was on the outside of it. Later that afternoon, needing to clear my head, I went through old photos stored on my cloud. I'd started collecting them years ago. Family reunions, Christmas dinners, that trip to Tybee Island where Rowena fell off the paddleboard and laughed until she cried. I found one from Mom's 60th. A grainy shot, but I was there, smack in the middle, arm around Velma. Matching t-shirts. All of us squinting in the sun. Then I saw Rowena's post, just a few days old. It was a throwback Thursday, captioned, Family always comes first. I looked closer. It was that same photo, only this time, I was missing. The crop was clean, so clean it took a second to notice, but I remembered the angle, the placement, the colors. I was there. Now I wasn't. She hadn't even replaced me, just trimmed me out, as if I'd been an extra someone forgot to delete until now. Something in my stomach twisted. I set the phone down, then picked it back up, then dropped it again. The shame didn't feel loud, it felt quiet, numb. This was the kind of cut you couldn't explain to outsiders, the kind that looked small but stung for weeks. I sat in my studio, surrounded by vision boards, fabric swatches, sketches for clients who didn't know my hands were trembling. I was supposed to finalize designs that day, but the only thing I kept seeing was that photo, or rather, the absence of me in it. Maybe I'd always been just barely included, thinly tolerated, like the cousin you invite because your mom said so. But cropping me out, that was different. That was deliberate. I heard my therapist's voice in my mind again. Repeated exclusion isn't about you not trying hard enough. It's about them seeing you as optional. I imagined texting Rowena. I even practiced aloud. Why did you change the group name? Why post that photo without me? The words felt childish in my mouth, like tattling. What if she spun it? What if Velma laughed it off again? Still, I couldn't ignore the heaviness. I didn't want to live inside it anymore. I opened my laptop, pulled up the original photo, then the cropped one, side by side, screenshot, saved both. I began typing. Sometimes family isn't about who shares your blood, it's about who decides you no longer belong. Then I paused, sat with it, hovered over post. My heart beat loud enough to feel in my teeth. Would it help? Would it change anything? Or would it just make me look bitter? I closed the window. Instead, I opened my messages, found Griffin, then Rowena. My fingers hovered, then typed slowly. I saw the photo you posted. I was in it before. I just want to understand, why was I removed? I hesitated, read the message twice, then again. My thumb hovered over the send button like it held weight I didn't know I could carry. Then I sent it, phone trembling in my hand. My phone buzzes just before sunrise. I freeze. It says Dad. After all this time, I want to let it go to voicemail. I want to ignore it, because nothing good ever follows those calls. But something in me says I need to hear it. Ellery. His voice is thin, hesitant. I haven't heard it in years. He says, I saw the message. We need to talk. My heart jolts. Not hope exactly, but something like possibility. Betrayal from Mom and Rowena cut deep. But Dad staying silent all these years. It feels worse. He admits he noticed the group chat change, the photo crop. He heard people saying things I wasn't meant to hear. He didn't stop it. Feels caught in silence. The guilt weighs in his voice. I pressure him, quietly. I ask how he could stand by. He says he was ashamed, didn't want conflict, thought it wasn't his fight. That excuse, they'd all used versions of it. When Velma calls, I answer. Her voice note, long, measured. I'm sorry you felt unseen, she says. Then she says she never intended pain, that she was trying to spare me. But the words twist. You know how Griffin feels, she says. I didn't want to stir anything. Maybe we forgot. Each phrase, a thin veil covering something heavy. Her apology wears fine ribbon, but underneath, it's water trying to cover a wildfire. It feels polite, carefully crafted. I listen, voice still. I don't argue, but I refuse to accept that invisible rope she's been pulling. That rope that kept me away. That strand of guilt she expects me to carry without acknowledgement. I tell them, I deserve clarity, not excuses wrapped in silence. I lay out what I heard on the recording, the way my name came up, the messages behind their backs, the group chat rename, the cropped photo. I don't shout. I don't beg. I speak as someone who has finally broken free of waiting for a chance to matter. We're face to face in Velma's living room. Dad sits between Rowena and Mom. Rowena avoids my eyes. Mom's hands twist in her lap. I see shame. Not the kind that forces words, but that kind that makes people small. I say, you invited me emotionally to belong, then excluded me physically. It's the clearest thing I've ever said. Mom's breath catches. Rowena looks away. Dad's voice comes, soft, remorseful, but still guarded. This isn't closure. It's something new. I step away from the gathering, not in defeat, but in choice. I leave the room so silence can finally feel like something more than waiting. I walk out the front door under a sky heavy with humidity. The porch light glows. I take a long, steady breath. And for the first time, I feel seen, not by all of them, but by myself. I was organizing old shipping boxes, ones I kept meaning to toss but never quite did. I found it in the last one, underneath a stack of cards and fabric samples. A pale blue envelope, hand-addressed by my mother. My name in cursive. I opened it slowly, not sure what I expected. It was an invitation. My 30th birthday. A celebration that never happened. I sat there staring at it. I remembered how she'd told me they had to cancel for reasons beyond our control. No makeup date, no explanation, just silence. Back then, I accepted it like a grown-up. People get busy. Things fall through. But looking at that envelope now, after everything, it hit different. That party wasn't canceled because of scheduling. It was erased, like I was a memory rewritten before it ever had the chance to be made. And then it came rushing back. My grandmother's voice, one afternoon over tea. You deserve what you dreamt of, baby. Don't let this world shrink you. I closed the envelope, but the ache stayed open. Later that week, I was reviewing an old portfolio for a client, flipping through digital folders, and I decided to pull up Rowena's new design website out of sheer morbid curiosity. There it was. A logo. Mine. Not kind of mine. Not inspired by mine. My original sketches, the asymmetrical layout I spent nights tweaking, the color fade I'd fought to keep subtle, and underneath it, designed by Rowena Dade Team. I didn't breathe for a full 10 seconds. My laptop screen blurred. I searched my own files, found my drafts, the Illustrator file with the metadata, date stamped 2 years ago, my name in the file properties, sketches scanned, voice memos from that week. It was airtight. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was theft. She'd taken my work, stripped my name, and posted it publicly. I drafted the email that night, calm, precise, and lined with steel. I didn't threaten. I offered options, either public acknowledgement and removal or professional exposure. I attached side-by-side comparisons and the time-stamped files. It wasn't revenge. It was reclaiming ground. The next morning, I got a voicemail from Grandma Thelma Jean. Her voice came through soft but firm. Ellery, baby, you have always been the heart of this family. Don't ever let them make you question that. I played it again in my car. Her voice steadied me. The same woman who used to tuck me into bed whispering, "You're stronger than they'll ever let you know." That voice, real, grounded, cut through the noise in my head. I parked outside a cafe and stared at my phone screen for a long time. Then I did it. I gathered everything. The birthday invitation, screenshots of the stolen logo, Grandma's voice memo, even old text messages they probably forgot I saved. I called Avis Coe, an old client, someone I trusted, set a quiet meeting, explained everything. She listened. Didn't interrupt, asked if I was sure. I was. That night, I published the post. Not on a whim, not out of rage, just done waiting. I wrote, "Some betrayals don't scream. They whisper through silence, through exclusion, through stolen credit passed off as love." Underneath it, side-by-side images, my invitation, the canceled party, the original logo, Rowena's portfolio page. Within an hour, the reactions started. Some people were stunned, others messaged quietly. I always wondered. There were a few who told me to take it down. Too personal, too much. Handle it privately, they said. As if it hadn't already been made public when they erased me in plain sight. And then I saw it. Velma's comment. "If you really cared, you would have said sooner." I stared at it, my hands still. Her words sat there, just enough blame to sting, just vague enough to deny. But this time, I didn't delete, didn't hide. I let them hang in the feed. Because her defense wouldn't change what I already knew. It came through late at night, just past 11. A private message from an account with no profile picture, no bio, no followers. My finger hovered over the delete button, assuming it was spam, but something made me open it. Inside were screenshots, grainy but clear enough. Text conversations between Kurt and someone he called Jay. Line after line of him talking about cleaning up Rowena's image, saying things like, "She needs to stop dragging around Ellery's drama. It's killing her brand." Another line, "She doesn't need family weight, she needs shine." I just sat there, phone in hand, throat dry. I knew he'd always been wary of me, distant, smug. But this was something else. He wasn't just whispering in her ear, he was planting seeds and watching them grow. And she let him. I didn't send them to Rowena, didn't say a word. I saved them in a folder named Closure and backed it up twice. This wasn't about confronting anymore. I had what I needed. 2 days later, I took my journal to Tybee Island. The wind was sharp that morning, not unfriendly, just honest. I made a list, 2 columns, what I can control, what I can't. On one side, my work, my voice, how I show up. On the other, their guilt, their denial, their silence. I sat with it, not in anger, in recognition. I remembered what Grandma Thelma once told me when I was young and crying over a birthday party gone wrong. Peace isn't winning, baby. Peace is when you stop demanding justice from people who can't give it. I looked at that list again and added one more note at the bottom. Stop carrying what was never mine to hold. That night, I closed down my old design blog. I didn't need to keep returning to a version of me that had outgrown the need to be noticed. That site had been built to prove something. Now, I didn't owe anyone proof. Then came the little things. A text from a client I hadn't worked with in years. Saw your story. Proud of you. A message from a design student I'd mentored once. Thanks for saying what so many of us feel but stay silent about. The woman at the cafe counter who said, "You're Ellery, right?" That post meant a lot. None of it fixed what had been broken, but it reminded me that clarity has power, that truth, even quiet, resonates. One afternoon, I was invited to speak at a small creative women's group downtown. Nothing big, just 15 of us in the back room of a bookstore, drinking coffee, sharing stories. I spoke about resilience, about having your work stolen, your name erased, and choosing to keep creating anyway. When I smiled that day, it was real, no weight behind it. And then came the call. It was Velma. Her voice was lower than usual, like she was speaking from inside herself, not from some polished surface. I read everything, she said. I don't know why I let it get so far. I thought, maybe I was protecting the family from falling apart. I didn't cut in. And I didn't list receipts, I just let her talk. When she paused, I said, I'm not asking you to admit everything. I just need you to understand it hurt. There was a long silence. Then, I do. That was it. No grand apology, no unraveling. But there was something in her voice, cracked, tired, but honest, that made me believe her. After the call ended, I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumphant. I just sat there, quiet, looking out the window at the early fall sky, and I whispered to myself, this time, I'm choosing me, and that's enough.